Welcome to Photoactive, a podcast about photography and technology. I'm Kirk McElhearn.
And I'm Jeff Carlson.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well because we've just been chatting about the Olympics. And I know the Olympics I think they're going to be done by the time this is published, but I've so thoroughly enjoyed watching some of the footage, watching people. One of the things that came up recently was it seems like the athletes and the people who are there, like they all seem to be having fun. I mean, obviously, you know, these are people doing high stress, very competitive, serious stuff, right? But they also seem to be enjoying themselves, which seems – I mean, maybe it's just because they're in Paris, but it seems different from other ones, right?
I think they enjoy themselves after their events are over mostly.
Well, sure, yeah.
All the stress that just drips off them when it's finished, even if they haven't won, it's, all the stress of getting there. Anyway, we were talking about the Olympics because we have a guest today, Matthieu Kopp of CYME, who makes the software Peakto, Peakto. I'm the only one, he said, who knows how to pronounce it because I lived in France, Peakto. You can say Peakto. This is version 2 of this software, which is an amazingly interesting app that lets you organize photos from different apps and libraries, which is like the biggest hassle when you store your photos is to have to deal with different apps and libraries. Jeff, why don't you take it from there?
First of all, I just want to point out that we talked to Matthieu last year at about this time. It was last June, talking about Avalanche and Peakto and how I have really enjoyed their approach, because you look at a typical photographer who has – well, let's say a typical photographer who has been shooting for a while. It's not uncommon, and I think this happens among all of us here especially, is you have photos in a bunch of different libraries. So I've got old Lightroom libraries. I've got old Aperture libraries. I've got iPhoto libraries. I have Lightroom Classic libraries. I use Lightroom Desktop. I've dabbled in Capture One. I've used On One before. And some of that is just because of us writing about these kind of topics. But a lot of photographers, they will maybe work in Lightroom for a while, get frustrated, switch to Capture One. Most of them are in their own little compartments where it's not easy to get to your On One photos if you are using Lightroom. And so what Peakto does is it lets you bring all those together in one place. You can say, this is my entire library. So that's what has interested me about this. And one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you back on, Matthieu, is to talk about the version 2, not just to say, here is a new version, but what sort of things you have added and why you chose to add them. Because I'm really interested in the process of figuring out what photographers want from this sort of a situation. So perhaps, Matthieu, you could sort of talk about some of the big new features and the priorities for making those the new features.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me again on your channel. It's a real pleasure. And yes, being in France at this moment is also something that's pretty cool, I must say. We released recently version 2 of our application Peakto, and there are several things that how would you say? There are several directions that we wanted to take with this version. The first thing that we didn't do in version 1 was supporting videos. And as you know, photographers or whether they're amateurs because they have videos on their iPhones or in their photos library, or whether they are professionals, they they tend to take more and more videos, and we see that shift in professional photographers, where their customers ask them not only to do photos but also to take videos. So we wanted to support videos in Peakto properly, and this is what we've done. So whether your videos are in catalogs, in Lightroom or Capture One, and by the way, the support of videos in those apps is not great, because they're really targeted at photographers, and there's very little that you can do with videos. But nonetheless, if you unload an SD card where you have videos in Lightroom or Capture One, they will be there. And so we try to give to those videos a first-class citizen status in Peakto. This means that, of course, we will render them, we will organize them, we will let you do things with them like annotate them and add star ratings, add stuff. We also extract a lot of metadata about them in order for you to find them. And we also support search in those videos, which is kind of new. What I mean by search in the videos is searching for content in the video. So that's pretty cool, because we talked about it last year. We introduced this prompt search in Peakto, where you can just type what you want to find, and it's going to find it. This works also for videos, so it will find content in your videos, and we highlight the part of the video that is relevant to the search that you've performed. So that was a big demand from our customers, support videos. And then we also added another big feature, which is support for face recognition. And this is sort of one of the underpinning of Peakto, is that there are lots of you mentioned a number of software apps that let you catalog or organize your videos, but you find out that there are lots of differences between them, and lots of they have very different capabilities. So you would have, for example, support for the map in Apple Photos or in Lightroom, but you don't have a map in Capture One. You have support for faces in Photos and in Lightroom, but you don't have in Capture One. In Capture One, you have other stuff that you don't have in other apps, etc., etc. So what we try to do with Peakto is to have features that are common to all the apps that we support. And this means sometimes that for example, we support maps across all the photos that you have in Peakto. So that means that even if your photos come from Capture One, you can see them on a map. And this is what we wanted to do with faces. Support faces for people that are in Capture One, or photos that are just organized in folders, and do it the best we can. So that was another big demand, supporting faces. And I think we've done a pretty good job at recognizing faces, recognizing things, people that are even at different ages of their life, and making sure we sort of recognize that they're the same. And we also support some unique features, like being able to merge faces, groups that are recognized, and various things like that. So that was the second big demand, and I think we've done a big job at that.
So I want to get back to videos in a minute, but the facial recognition, I think, is one of the strongest things, and I'm really curious because it seems like you are pulling data from apps that do facial recognition, not just starting over from scratch, because I think version 1, you could search for faces, but that was all Peakto's doing. And here, like, for example, if I'm looking at my Lightroom catalog and I have identified, Bob and Sally and Rick and whoever, then that is carrying across. Is it difficult? Has it been difficult to grab that sort of information? And how much is Peakto also doing its own recognition? Like, where's the balance of making those features work together?
Well, it's a great question. It's I'll try to answer it to the best of my knowledge. it's been a long discussion between us, and the fact that we have a very unique position in that we grab things from other apps because we want to get this unified version, a unified view of everything you have. And we synchronize across with the changes that happen in the apps, because you keep adding photos, you keep doing stuff, and you want to always see the up-to-date version of your photos in Peakto. The thing is that how far should we do that synchronization and that stuff? And at some point, we decided that, okay, Peakto is going to be the reference for faces. So when you start annotating faces in Peakto, these are... Peakto is going to be the source of truth for faces. And then we realized that it's not going to work, because if you've put a lot of effort into annotating your face in Photos or in Lightroom, it's kind of even insulting to say that you have to throw it away and then start it over again. So the way we do that is, yes, we grab the information from Apple Photos or Lightroom, because we can read it from the catalog. And then we always do our own facial recognition. So first of all, we detect the face positions, and then we try to recognize whether they are in groups. But if those faces, they come from a photo that is in Photos or in Lightroom, we check whether there is an annotation and whether this annotation is it has a geometry. That means it's been annotated in a very particular position in the thing. And if we detect a face that has a good overlap with a face that is already annotated, then we take that name and we assign it to the face. But we never use the recognition. I mean, we can't use the algorithm of Lightroom or Apple Photos, but we use faces that have been assigned in locations in the photos, and if we match with the ones that we detect, we say it's a match, and then we assign it. This means that all the faces you've annotated in Photos or Lightroom, they will flow into Peakto seamlessly. But nice. Then whatever we do in Peakto, we don't send back, because we assume that it's a basis of work that's been done, and we grab it, but then we build on top of it. So we don't try to send it back, or to actually, we can't really interact with those apps and modify if we detect new faces, or if you assign names to faces that were not assigned in Photos or in Lightroom, we won't actually send that information back into the pictures.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting, and I think speaks to what you guys have been doing from the beginning, which is untangling a lot of this naughty detail in terms of making all of these software bits talk to each other. Like with Avalanche, using AI to determine some of these, the different metadata and such. And one of the things that I realize, I haven't tested this yet, but I need to. When you're talking about that, it makes me think of one of my giant frustrations with Apple Photos, which is you never know when it's going to do its facial recognition or its syncing. So I can add a whole bunch of pictures of people and will not know if they're going to be picked up. Sometimes Photos says, well, keep your computer on and stay plugged in, and whereas Peakto is doing a better job of synchronizing. Like, I believe that if I were to add a bunch of photos of people, Peakto would probably pick them up, especially if it's somebody that I already have in my database, before Apple Photos, which is incredibly useful to me.
I haven't tested it, but it's definitely an area where there is some frustration with Apple Photos, because it does its stuff in the background whenever it decides that the computer is not stressed enough. Because recognizing faces is a pretty intensive, computationally intensive task. This is why it does it while you're not using your computer. hence the delays and everything. Which brings me, if I may, to one of the new features as well that we had to introduce in order to solve that particular issue, which is the fact that some operations can be slow, and for example, if you do face recognition on, say, 10,000 images, it's going to take about 10 minutes on a M1, for example. So if you have 100,000 images, it's going to take 100 minutes. It's very hard to compete with Apple on that thing, because Apple Photos will probably take hours to do 100,000 photos, maybe days, you don't know, but you never notice. And okay, you get this frustration of not having those faces recognized, but you don't see your computer with a progress bar that says there are 2 more days to go until I'm finished. It just hides it from you. And we decided to introduce a background mode for Peakto, where you can also close the window, and Peakto stays and runs in the menu bar as a menu bar app. So it performs certain operations. It continues to perform certain operations in the background, and you can use your computer, and you can also control how much power you give it to do its job. So, for example, you can start an ingestion that's going to take for a long time, and you just close the main window, and it's going to continue seamlessly. And you can control if you want to give it a lot of power or not a lot of power, in order to, depending on how you're using your computer. So this is a major new feature as well, and it enables us also to solve another problem, which is the fact that some people were in the previous version, when they were launching Peakto and they wanted to do something, then they would see a lot of things happening, like Peakto would check all the synchronization with the data that they had already ingested, and would say, oh, you're out of date for so many things. And then you had to update that thing, and you had to wait until all these updates were finished until you could really use the software. So you could maybe spend a few minutes or longer if you had many changes, until you could actually do your stuff. Now, if you leave it to run in the menu bar, it's going to update every hour or every 3 hours. You choose the delay, and so when you open it up, it should be always up to date. So that's another thing that we've changed, and I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, but making sure, giving the impression that to the user that you're not always doing stuff while he just wants to use the software, is actually pretty hard.
I think 10,000 photos in 10 minutes. How many people, unless you're importing a library for the first time, how many people are going to have 10,000 photos? If you do have 10,000 photos, 10 minutes is nothing. It's the time to go make a cup of coffee. Let's imagine you've gone to a wedding and you've got 4 photographers shooting in burst mode. Maybe you have 10,000 photos. So 10 minutes for that isn't a big deal. And I would expect anyone who's importing their library for the first time to expect it to take a while anyway.
Yeah, but well, I was just speaking about face recognition here. So if you import 10,000 photos on an M1, you would probably have about, I don't know, 5-7 minutes to just ingest the photos so you can actually see them. Then you would have AI that runs and does its stuff, like, for example, enabling search and all that. Probably going to take another 10 minutes, and then you have 10 minutes for face recognition. So in total, you're probably going to be about 30 minutes. So,
but still, this is, for most people, this is the first time they import their library, and this won't happen again.
But we have customers with 1 million photos.
They shouldn't have 1 million photos. Tell them it's wrong.
No, I know.
You don't want 1 million photos. Can you imagine? Like, why would you want 1 million photos? What would you do with them?
Well, because people have accumulated a lot of things over time, and
but 1 million photos.
I know it's a lot, but and this is where we think we haven't done it so much yet, because building such a software, you have so many moving parts and you have so many things that you need to get to work. And being able to support all those catalog formats and all that stuff has really been a pretty heavy task. But really, one of the missions that we have is first of all to give you a bird's eye view on your pictures, and I think we are pretty close to that goal. Having a great search, pretty close to that goal too. But now helping you to actually clean up and find the most valuable pictures, and also find the ones you really want to delete is our next big task. And I think there is a statistics coming from antivirus apps that scan photos and stuff, and scan or basically all files on a hard drive, and they say that 20% or 30% of the pictures that people have on their computer are duplicates. 20%. So that's already that's a low-hanging fruit, I think, finding those duplicates and being able to help you remove them without having to go through all of them and say, and validate. You don't want to do that. So there's a big challenge for finding the right user interface, the right actions in order for the software to seamlessly do that without making big mistakes. There's lots of stuff to do with that respect.
Yeah. So going back to video real quick, I'm intrigued by the idea that, perhaps this is just a limitation of my own knowledge. So you're using machine learning to scan the videos so that, let's say, I have some video from my vacation, and I want to search for, I don't know, the Eiffel Tower. The way this would work is it will just show me that, oh, the Eiffel Tower appears in this video and it appears at the 3-minute mark or what have you. Is that a more complex task than doing a similar search through photos? Or is it basically just a video is a whole bunch of still frames and it just looks at it like that?
Yeah, so that's the basic approach is exactly that. You basically have still frames that are sampled over time. Based on the duration of the video, you will take more or less frames. So let's take an example. You have a 1 second sampling. So for most of your 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute videos, that ends up in actually looking at a few tenth or 100 frames and actually indexing that content. So that's the basic approach, and that's the one we're actually doing right now, which is when you search, we look into those frames. But we have some big plans for videos over the coming year in Peakto and also outside Peakto, and we are going to do more clever things with videos. I give you an example. Imagine you have a video of a great French football player called Mbappé that is scoring with his head, right? So you would see a video of him maybe running, and then the ball comes, and then maybe you would see that you would have a video of the head hitting the ball, and then you have a frame that shows the ball inside the passing the goalkeeper and inside the goal, right? So if you just look at what those frames are telling you, they are telling you that you have a player, you have a ball, you have a goalkeeper, you have another player, and then you have a thing. It doesn't at that no moment do you have this idea that there's an action of scoring a goal. So if you would search for scoring a goal, you would maybe not find it. You would find, you know what I mean? There is a different things. There is a different notion. When you have a sequence of images over time, they tell a story that each image is not telling individually. So the idea is to be able to find that line and that story through a prompt search. so combining those images together to create something more than just the individual, or the indexing of the individual images. So we're working currently on this sort of topics in order to be able to describe a sequence. There are also some things that happen over time. For example, you can have a video that is taking and that has not been stabilized. So can you detect those videos that haven't been stabilized? Lots of things you want to do by analyzing what happens over time. So this is why it's a bit more complex than just looking at samples.
Yeah. I love this. I'm going to go back to something you said about user interface, trying to figure out a good user interface for some of this, because what this tells me, and one of the reasons why I like Peakto is, with my example with the facial recognition, I love to be able to say, I want you to scan this library now. And I can go in and I can say, sync this library or, update this scan, and just know that it's going to do it, even if I have to wait 10 minutes or so. But I also, in terms of the video, I appreciate the fact that there's a place for video, because, I don't shoot a lot of video. I'm very much a photographer who will capture some video here and there maybe. But there's always that question of what to do with it. Typically, I'll bring it into Lightroom, but then that's using a big chunk of my Creative Cloud storage space. And Lightroom, I should also specify, Lightroom Classic doesn't do video at all. So Lightroom Desktop will do video, but it's just really, really basic. Photos will do video, but again, that may be a completely different thing because I shot it with my iPhone. And then I have a drone, and when I have those clips, which can oftentimes be very large, I don't want them in my Lightroom library. It sort of goes around and around. And so being able to have it all accessible via Peakto, and I don't have to put it anywhere. Like Peakto knows where it is. They can be on a folder. It can be in a library or whatever. Consolidating that is super, super helpful.
Yeah, and creating those links between the photos and the videos is very useful too. If you have your videos in folders, but you also took photos that are in Lightroom, being able to find the video that corresponds to a particular shot that you've taken is actually really, really useful. Using similarities, so all this stuff works really well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, can you just tell us quickly how to get Peakto, how much it's priced?
We have two sort of types of customers: the ones who like one-time purchases, and the ones that like to buy subscriptions. So we support both models, and you can go on our website and get Peakto either for as a subscription, so either 1 month, 12 months, and we introduced recently a 24 months, so 2 years subscription, which is a really, really good deal because it's about 129 euros or dollars, I think. And you have 7 days trials on every subscription models that you can pick. 1 year subscription is 89 euros, and I think it's $89 as well. And one-time purchase is 189 euros or dollars. And we have 15% off with a promo code that we can give you, which is PhotoActive15. So that's how you can get Peakto. If you just allow me to say one thing about the user interface, we are really very thankful to all our community of testers and things and people who give us some ideas about how to improve that, because it's pretty hard to do a good user interface for complicated apps, and we know that we still have to simplify a number of things. But in this version 2, we introduced a new feature that is really a purely user interface feature, which is called the timeline, which gives you an overview of when did you take your pictures over time. So you have like a graph that displays the distribution of your pictures over time. And it works really well with filters. So, and it's pretty cool when you combine that timeline with the people, because if you have annotated people and you select one person, for example, then the timeline will transform and you will see highlighted in a specific color, which are the days or the months or the weeks for which you took pictures of that specific person. So it's a great way, and that was one of the things that I really wanted to do from the beginning, was to be able to get a view of how regularly or irregularly did I take pictures of my kids, for example, or of specific subjects. So here you can see how many pictures match a specific criteria, and it works with a prompt as well. You can search for something specific, and it will actually draw over time when you have pictures for that specific subject. I think it's a pretty cool feature, and we'll continue to develop it even further.
Okay, I want to thank you, Matthieu Kopp from CYME, CYME.io. The app is Peakto, Peakto version 2. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Okay, since it's Tuesday, we're going to do snapshots. Jeff, what have you got?
Since it's Tuesday? Is Tuesday the reason for snapshots?
Well, I don't know. We usually record this podcast on Tuesdays, so I guess there's some reason.
I just love the idea of you on the Tuesdays that we don't record, just wandering around like, it's snapshot day. Where's Jeff? My snapshot has nothing to do with photography. Every once in a while this happens, unless you want to count it as you going out on a photo excursion somewhere. I recently picked up on sale a tire inflator portable air compressor. Ooh, exciting. Basically, it is a rectangle that's roughly the size of, I don't know.
A cigarette pack?
No.
A hard disk?
It's not bigger than that. It's like a
bread box?
Let's say bread box. Smaller than a bread box.
Okay. Smaller than a bread box.
Of course, there will be a link in the show notes so you can take a look for yourself. But basically, my car is an older Prius, and the tires, while they're in fine order, they sometimes tend to get a little bit low. And I need to check the air pressure and sometimes fill it up. And the problem is that to check the air pressure, you usually have like a little handheld thing that's hard to stick in and get an accurate reading. And then at least around here, to inflate your tire, you go to a gas station, you put some money into a little machine that will give you compressed air for 4 minutes or something. Quite often those are broken or they don't work. It's just a big hassle. And so I saw this. It was recommended in something else that I read. And basically it's this little battery-powered handheld air compressor. And you plug it into your tire. It will give you a digital reading that says what your air pressure is. You can set what the air pressure should be, and you basically push the button and it inflates it and it stops when it needs to. It also works for things like basketballs.
Bicycle tires?
Bicycle tires. It comes with the little –
beach balls?
Beach balls, yep, exactly.
Like, inflatable mattresses?
I don't know about inflatable mattresses, but there's no reason why it wouldn't. Yeah.
Mickey Mouse floats for the Thanksgiving Day parade?
It might take a little bit more power than that has.
Well, you should try, I think.
I'll see if I can find one. Maybe at Costco, maybe they have like one of those giant inflatable balloons. It was like $60. Now, the absurd thing is Amazon lists it at 93% off. List price is $800. The list price is not $800. That's a ridiculous thing to make it look better. But $60 was absolutely fine in the range of what I wanted for this thing that just lives in my car. And if I need it, I can top off the tires or whatever. It just helps in many, many different ways and removes a bit of frustration for me.
I don't want this to drag on too long, but first, you actually have to pay to put air in your tires at gas stations in the U.S.? That's just insane.
Yeah, they've started doing that. Some of them you can actually pay with your watch, like you can use Apple Pay, but
That's
still,
terrible.
It's ridiculous. Yes.
Okay. So when you said air compressor, I thought it was something that you were going to use to blow air on your camera lenses and to clean out the charging thing on your iPhone or something like that. Can you do that as well?
You probably can, but I don't think it's a good idea. No, actually, I don't think it has like an actual blower. I've not tried it.
Like an attachment, yeah.
I don't think I would.
Look into it. Maybe there's an attachment you can screw on. And then, I mean, you may have to hold it far away so you don't damage it. But that'd be really good to have.
That would be really good to have. Actually, that makes me think I've used little cans of compressed air to, blow dust off, and the last one I had is empty. And so I need to find a replacement. Like technology must have improved since I bought a can of compressed air, right?
Yeah.
All right. What do you have this week?
I have a film, and it's not directly about photography, but it's about photographers. I don't know if you've seen this. It's called Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
It's got Kirsten Dunst, who is a photojournalist, and in a world in the near future where Texas and California have seceded from the United States. I mean, explain to me how Texas and California succeeded. They don't go into that. So there's this photojournalist named Lee Smith, who is played by Kirsten Dunst, and she wants to go to Washington, D.C. to get photos of what's going on. Along the way, they pick up a young woman who wants to be a photojournalist, and she's shooting film. And the Kirsten Dunst camera goes, "Ooh, Nikon FE2. You don't see many of those anymore." It's like, these were my dad's camera. Mm-hmm. That's like a totally Gen Z thing, right? My dad's cameras. It's an incredibly violent movie. If you don't like violent movies, I would say avoid this. It's incredibly violent. But what's interesting is the fact that the main characters are photojournalists, and you get a good idea of what it's like being a journalist in a war zone. So it's called Civil War. You can get it in all the usual places where you download your movies or stream your movies, like the iTunes Store, etc. The iTunes Store. It's not called the iTunes Store anymore. The TV app or whatever.
The Apple Store of things. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That's enough for this week. In a couple weeks, we'll come back and we'll talk about something else.
Oh, something else. I look forward to it.
Thanks for listening to Photoactive. You can find show notes, including any photos we discuss in this episode, at photoactive.co. That's photoactive.co. We couldn't afford the M. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/photoactivecast. That's photoactivecast in one word. You can subscribe to Photoactive in your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts. See the links on our website. And think about leaving us a rating or review in iTunes or in your podcast.